Yeah. And for a lot of people who are out there and they just feel like she not talking to me. Like ain't no way I can get no grant. I know you said that there's a grant out there for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Is there really a grant out there for everybody?
So I encourage people to make a list of about 10 things that either you want to do within your business or you're currently doing within your business. A lot of times entrepreneurs, we put ourselves in a bubble. We say, hey, I have this podcast, right? I need grant funding for my podcast. But if you talk about the podcast and talk about different episodes that you've done, maybe you've done an episode that caters to mental health. Maybe you've done an episode that talks about, single moms and their well-being. Maybe you've done an episode that talks about youth. Each one of those things is a category where you can get access to grant funding. So you have to look at your picture, think outside the box. What else can I do to get access to grant funding? We have people who say they don't have time to apply for grants. I have single mothers with 4, 5, and 6 kids that are applying for grants. Still working mothers as well that are applying for grants and strategizing and getting access to grant funding. There's no excuse.
All right, so if you're watching this show, this episode of Finding Your Niche with Neish, you might know this song. Money, 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 money. Money! I am so excited because the person sitting across from me is the money girl, baby. It's one thing to want money and to get money, and it's a whole nother thing to get free money. Okay? So we finna get into it. I'm so excited to talk to this amazing, successful, financially successful woman sitting across from me today to talk about how you can secure grants, how you can scale in business through grant funding and business funding. Welcome to the show. Coach K, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you and to really just bring what you offer to the world. And more specifically to my audience, people who are looking to scale in business and just grow in grant funding. Before we actually get into the nitty gritty of making money, I'm always actually interested and more invested into the person that became the person that you are today that can help other people scale in business. So as we begin to look at like who you are, talk to me a little bit about how you kind of came into this world, and did you always see yourself as this successful entrepreneur?
So my background is finance. I worked for Wells Fargo for about 15 years, and I just knew that my community needed me in another way. People would walk inside the bank, they would want access to funding and capital. They would have poor credit scores, or they would not have the resources that they need to get loans and lines of credits and business funding. So I knew that I wanted to educate beyond the desk. Mm-hmm. I knew that I wanted to fulfill a different mission. Outside of that, I own a child care center, and my business was struggling. I was the entrepreneur that was using my paycheck from my 9 to 5 to fund my business, and I needed a resource to scale my business to the next level. So I turned to grant funding, and grant funding allowed me to kind of continue my journey in being an entrepreneur along with working at the bank at the same time.
Okay, so take me through the inception of you starting grant funding, right? Put me actually in the story.
Okay.
So you are struggling as a child care facilitator, mm-hmm. and it's a Tuesday. Let's say it's a Tuesday.
Okay.
And you're in the middle of it all. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about the moment, or if there is one, an isolated moment where you're sitting there, if you have the kids in front of you or whatever the situation may have been, where you realize this has to stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't. Talk to me. Tell me that story and how it kind of came to be.
So it was a Tuesday. Payroll's due on Friday, right?
Wow.
So I was using my paycheck from my 9 to 5 job to fund payroll. Full transparency, I worked at the bank, so I knew what I could get away with as far as like overdraft fees, and I was overdrafting my account to make payroll until things came in to kind of supplement that and offset that. And I just literally sat down and was like, something has to give. This has to work. Either I'm going to have to pivot and let this go, or I'm going to have to figure out how to make this a business and be the CEO of a business and not just a hobby. So I just kind of sat down and figured out how to brainstorm. I applied for multiple grants. It took a lot of grants for me to apply for before I secured that first grant.
Wow.
I really was at the point where I was ready to give up. And that first grant came in, it was a $500 grant. Still wasn't enough to help me with my business, but it gave me the motivation that I needed to just kind of continue with my grant journey and let me know that there are companies that will invest in me, even though I was a for-profit company and I had a child care center in a low-income area.
I want to unpack something that you said a little bit that I don't want to really skim over, but I think is important for us to kind of address. You said that you kind of understood the system and you knew how to kind of get away with things within the system to be able to stay leveled and financially. That is, to me, is like it's like a systemic trauma that Black people have, and in the Black culture where we we finesse the system essentially. I don't know any other way to say this. So my mom actually did 4 years in prison because she would do check fraud. And she figured out a way to manipulate the system. And my childhood is crazy because I went from like, my mom was able to like finesse a lot of people, even NFL players, like occupy the space and the identity of an NFL player. So some of our birthdays would be like super, super extravagant. Then when she went to prison, I'm like sleeping next to roaches. So with that being said, I feel like that's so interesting that you said that you knew to do that, because I feel like there's a lot of Black people, and even in the culture, that feel like they always know somebody. They got a cousin that got like a situation or something like that. So talk to me a little bit about that. Like, why do you feel like Black people feel, or the culture at large, the Black culture, Black society feel like they have to finesse their way into success opposed to just doing it the right way?
It's just a lack of knowledge. We don't know, which is why I teach this information. We don't know that there are resources out there that will give us funding to help us scale and grow our business to the next level. We don't have to finesse. You don't have to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody to get access to the funding and capital you deserve for your mission and for your business. And working in a financial institution and being on the other side of the desk, I've seen it all the time, right? So
give me an example, like a story that you can remember.
So prior to working for Wells Fargo, I worked for a payday loan company.
Okay.
And that's kind of how I got into finance. And working for the payday loan company, people would come inside and they would borrow $500. They would have to pay back $87.50 every 2 weeks. But you would have to present the full $587.50. So, and this is kind of when the light bulb went off for me, like, you got to do something. You got to educate people. There was a particular lady, an older lady, who would come in. She would pay $87.50 every 2 weeks. Her file was about this thick. She had been at the payday loan company the entire time, from the time that they opened until I was maybe like a sophomore in college. So we're going to say about 10 years.
Okay.
10 years paying $87.50 every 2 weeks. We calculated it one time. We were like, this is what you could have done.
Wow.
If you would have just kind of strategized and budgeted the correct way and figured out another avenue. So that's just one example of where I felt like I just needed to do something different and educate people on what was available for them. There's resources out there, as far as there's grant funding if you are in hardship, not just for being a business owner or an entrepreneur. So it's just educating people about what's available.
And speaking of educating people, I think it's so interesting, like, having you on too, because a lot of people, they hear the word grants, they hear it, especially if you're in the entrepreneur space, you hear it a lot. But it seems like you do the job that nobody wants to do, essentially. Because grants seem so like such an insurmountable mountain that you have to climb, that just is like, I gotta do what? I gotta have what? My business gotta be legit. What? I gotta know what? So how do you teach people and educate people about grants in general? Like, what is a grant for people who don't really understand that? And then what needs to be in place for people to actually be in the running, I guess, essentially, to be able to apply for grants?
Yeah. So I teach people by showing them results.
Okay.
If I can show you what I've been able to accomplish with grant funding and how grant funding has been able to save me, or I can show you how Susan has been able to get XYZ amount of funding for her business as well, even though she has, 5 kids and she's a working entrepreneur, and you're relatable to that person, then it makes it seem like it's attainable to you and it's not just a goal that's out there. So I definitely use the strategy of showing you results. Every entrepreneur qualifies for grant funding, but it starts with investing in your own mission, making sure you have a legal entity, making sure you have an LLC or a nonprofit. Grant funding is literally just asking companies and organizations to invest in your goals and invest in your mission, and it's debt-free. They're not asking for anything in return. They're not asking for a piece of your company. They're just asking for you to execute. Simply it.
Okay, so you made it sound super easy right now. You made it sound super easy, and that's because you've been doing it.
Right.
But when, if I'm just like a regular entrepreneur, let's just say, for example, I have a cleaning business. I have a cleaning company. I don't even know where to start. Like, I heard you say, like, there's a grant for every entrepreneur. How do I even find out, like, what grants are for me, and how do I guess, entertain or at least make myself visible?
Absolutely.
To
Great
those
question.
people who are investing.
So there are a couple of different ways. So there's this myth out there that you have to have a grant proposal to apply for grants. There are some grants that only ask you questions about your business and questions about your mission. So if you can apply for a job, you can complete a grant application. All grants are not that simple. You want to make sure that your business and your brand is unique. You want to make sure that you're standing out from anyone else that's applying for this grant. It's a high demand for getting debt-free funding, so you want to make sure you're the most credible person to get access to the capital or funding. So you have to find the missing piece. You have to figure out why this company should invest in you. What's different about your cleaning company? What impact are you making? Why are you needed, and why are you the best person to get access to the capital? Are you giving back to the community? Do you, once a quarter, do you go to a nursing home and do a free cleaning? Do you help out disabled veterans? What's the missing piece in your industry? And that's what's going to open up the door for funding for you.
I love that. Okay, so when you say missing piece, because that's actually what I'm interested in learning, and for the audience who are out there listening, when you say missing piece, right, you're trying to find that distinguishing factor because you have other people who are applying for the same grant. So you have competition, essentially. What is it that you would tell people, or what advice would you give to people to making sure that they are distinguishing themselves from the competition to where the actual investor, the people who are giving out their grants, notice them? Like, is it a matter of speed? Is it like who fills out the grant the fastest when it releases? Is it a matter of impact? Like, what are the facets that would make you stand out from other companies?
I'll use my company for an example. So my child care center, we're in a low income area. So what I did was I went around and I marketed my competitors. I did pop-ups. I made it like I was a parent that was interested in child care. And I went out and I figured out what did they have or did not have that I could incorporate into my
Your
company.
competitors?
Yeah, to my competitors.
Okay.
So I went out maybe 5 to 10 mile radius, searched my competitors to see what they didn't have. What I noticed was that a lot of child care centers, they put the kids in front of a TV and press play. They're supposed to have a curriculum, but all of them don't have a solid curriculum. So I figured out what my city wanted and aligned my business with what was relatable to my city and who they wanted to give the funding to. They wanted a STEM education program, which is technology, math. They wanted hands-on technology and education for low-income communities and lower education. So I'm the missing piece now. I incorporated a STEM education program into my child care center, and that's how I was able to be the missing piece and align with my city goals. And that's how we were able to make our business and our brand stand apart from anyone else that's applying, because now we're on the same mission as our city.
Okay, that's good to know, because what that sounds like to me is not so much as like knowing about the grant, but what it sounds like to me is that you actually implemented strategy. And I think that's so key to a lot of people, because when they think about a grant, you're not taking it at face value, right? You're not taking it as like, okay, this is the grant, this is what it says in black and white on paper. It's just like, like, how can I figure out how to really find out what is it that they're looking for so that I can become the person that is most susceptible to receiving the grant? And so when it comes to strategy, and in the example that you just used, how did you know to do that? Like, what advice would you give to other people when it comes to getting grant funding in terms of strategy?
I would start with local funding opportunity. There is funding right in your back door. You can contact your city council or your mayor's office and ask them about funding opportunities for entrepreneurs. Your city council, your state, they want to be able to brag about growing and thriving entrepreneurs in their area. So a lot of times they have funds that are sitting to the side waiting to pour into the community we really just don't know about. So you can make a phone call to your city council's office today and say, hey, let me know about funding opportunities that are available. Sometimes as entrepreneurs, when we talk about needing funding, we're very selfish with why we need funding. We talk about needing funding for a new business. We talk about needing funding for inventory. But if we can talk about the impact that we're going to make when we start our business and grow our business, or the change that we're going to be able to make within our industry or within our community, this is what these companies want to see. They want to invest into people who have an action plan, who are giving back, who are solving a problem and being a solution in their industry and in their community.
Okay, and that's good to know too, because if somebody, let's say, started a business on just an idea and they don't really have the infrastructure yet within their business that implements like community and impact and how they're actually making a change, do you kind of recommend them to kind of like get their ducks in order before applying, or is it just like go ahead and apply and get yourself in the running and then figure out kind of like where you go after that?
There's funding available for that entrepreneur. So they might still be trying to figure out, what their industry.
There's money out there for people who don't know what they're doing for real?
Yeah, there's funding available for an idea. There's funding available for, you could say, I just need a vehicle for my business. There's funding available for that. Progressive just gave out a $50,000 grant to buy a commercial vehicle. They only wanted to know what you were going to do with the vehicle to qualify for the grant. AT&T
Shout out to That's crazy.
There's funding available for everything. Literally, you can make a list of what you need in your business.
So because you're just like the grant queen, but like how do people learn about what grants are available to them? Like I don't know, I didn't know that about Progressive. So like how do people become knowledgeable about what opportunities are in front of them?
So one of my favorite websites is called Grant Watch. They have a monthly subscription fee, and you can get email alerts of grants that come up in your area and in your industry. And they're going to notify you about grant opportunities that are available. You can also use social media platforms. Everybody on social media is talking about grants right now. I post 5 grants every Monday that you can apply for. 5 grants to apply for this week. They have deadlines coming soon. So I'm giving you the resource. I have competitors.
Yeah.
Those competitors are giving you 5 to 10 grants as well. So your grant cheat sheet is online.
Right.
It's right at your fingertips. But Grant Watch is an amazing platform for entrepreneurs or for-profit or nonprofit. They need grant funding.
Yeah. Okay. And when it comes to somebody who is maybe like novice, like I'm a first timer, like I've never had a grant before, I never even reached out to it. You actually were able to secure a grant that's a 6-figure grant.
Yes.
What kind of expectation do you set, I guess, for your clients when they're like, yo, like what, 6 figures? I want to make 6 figures, but you're like, hold on, you're like, let's just start small. Let's try to get your first 5K or 10K.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of expectation do you set for people when it comes to getting grant funding?
So there's currently $32 billion in grant funding out there available for entrepreneurs, right? But I tell entrepreneurs that you want to scale and take advantage of the smaller opportunities, because when we get to those large 6 and 7-figure grants, they want to make sure that we're credible and that we're able to handle smaller grant funding. So this is going to kind of be our resume, so to say, and show what we've been able to do with the smaller grants. If I drop $10,000 on the ground, but there's $1 million right there, you're going to pick the $10,000 up to go get the million, or are you going to skip over the $10,000 to go get the million? You're going to pick the $10,000 up and then head to the million. That's the same strategy I tell my people. If you have a 6-figure goal and you're like, you know what, I need $150,000 for my business, we can go out and get you the $150,000 for your business, but we might have to go get $25,000 from this company, $50,000 from this company, $7,000 from this company, $4,000 from that company.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to take advantage of the smaller opportunities to reach the higher goal as well.
I love that. And when we think about the smaller opportunities, and I don't know if this is discussed enough, but when you go out and to pursue a grant, right? What is the actual turnaround time when it comes to like delayed gratification, when you're like, oh my God, I see this grant, I'm going to apply for it. It's a $10,000 grant. Then you learn a couple weeks later, I got accepted, I won the grant. what is that turnaround time from when like you go and apply for it to getting the money?
Realistically, I would say 3 months to 18 months. I tell my
That is, if that ain't delayed gratification, 18 months. Hold on a second.
18 months. If we're talking about large 6-7 figure grants and you know that you need that in 2025, you should be working on that now.
Okay, so that goes back to strategy.
Strategy.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you know that you have a goal, it's 2024 now. If I know I want to implement something and create something in 2025, this same time, October, I need to be putting things in place now.
Have it in your
Am I
pipeline.
applying for the grant this year?
Apply for it now. Apply for it now and have a mission and have an action plan. Let's just say you wanted to host a podcast summit, and you know that in December of 2025 you want to host this podcast summit. To host this podcast,
You better prophesy over my life.
To host this podcast summit, it's going to cost you about $250,000 to make it happen, right? So now we need to sit down and strategize. We need to have an action plan. When we're going to host this summit, how many people are we going to be able to impact? How many sponsors do we need? You know, who is this going to benefit? Why is this beneficial to the community and the impact we can make on the community as well? So we have our action plan. Now we're going to find grant funding that's available. We're going to start applying for grants now, telling them about our action plan in December of 2025.
Okay.
Now, we might get grant funding next month, but we're going to put that in a separate account to fulfill our mission for 2025.
Gotcha.
But now we always have something in the pipeline, and we're not waiting until October, and you're like, October of 2025, and you're like, Coach K, what's going on? Where's the funding?
Yeah.
Right? So now we have a strategy to get ready beforehand, and we can execute on our mission.
I love that. That's actually really smart in a very resourceful way of going about putting on an event, because you have a lot of people that go into the negative to put on events. And so many people don't think about implementing, seeking grants to like put things together, put things on. So I think that's just so fascinating. Another thing that you said that I think is important, right? You were able to secure a 6-figure grant. When the money starts moneying and it comes in, how do you stay accountable for what you said you were going to do with the money when it actually comes? How do you navigate that? Because I mean, like when you start seeing, like you open your bank account, like, oh my God, this money came in. Like, how does that work as far as like your level of accountability and responsibility to the actual mission?
Yeah, I would say that first $500 grant, I don't think that actually saved my business. Shifted my mindset, changed my business, or saved my business. I had to make sure I had the right mindset to run and navigate my business the right way. So when that 6-figure grant came, I was ready and prepared for that 6-figure grant. We have a lot of entrepreneurs who get 6 figures in their funding and in their account, and they blow it. But now it's kind of going to limit their amount of funding that they're able to get in the future, because other companies and grantors are going to ask you about grants that you've received previously. They might want to take a look at what you've done with the funds that you received before. So if I can show them that, hey, you gave me 6 figures in 2023, or I received 6 figures in 2023, and this is what I was able to do, now they're excited about giving me more funding. Other companies are going to want to invest in my mission because I show the credibility of what I can do when I receive the fund. I didn't go to Dubai. I didn't go buy the latest Chanel bag. I made sure that I executed on my mission and built out my business.
And I'm curious to know that, because there's a lot of people who would say the opposite version of that. They would say, I did go to Dubai. I did buy a Chanel bag with my grant money.
And it's out there.
Right. I've been to Turks and Caicos. How were you able to do that, I guess? How were you able to be responsible with what came in? Like, how did you manage your money, so to speak?
Keeping my mission first. I knew I didn't want to be broke anymore. I knew I didn't want to be the person that was overdrafting their bank account anymore to fulfill my business or grow my business. So again, that shift in mindset was going to be ideal. It was ideal, and it just made sure I was prepared for funding. Really, by the time I really executed it and put it into my business to grow my business, it really wasn't a lot left. 6 figures isn't a lot of money to grow a business, especially a childcare business. So by the time I made sure payroll was good, by the time I actually went in and did any rehabs that I wanted to do and made sure I had a little cushion, it wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
And grant funding is also taxable, and that's something that people don't talk about. You can be taxed on grant funding if you're a for-profit company. So I wanted to make sure that when my CPA or whoever was doing my taxes at the time seen my account statement, we were able to kind of make sure we were able to write it off just a little bit so that I didn't get taxed on the funding.
Yeah, there's so many facets. Even that you just saying that to the grant opportunities that it's actually taxable.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in and of itself, grants are not something that people are just aware of. They just don't know about it. What do you think that is? Why don't people know about grants?
It's just lack of information. It's lack of information, lack of using the resources that are available. Grant funding is out there. Every major company, every major corporation has some type of grant that they're giving back to either small business owners or nonprofits. So it's at our fingertips. But it's just our community. We just don't leverage the resources that are available.
Mm-hmm. If somebody said, you know what, oh my God, I love Coach K. I've decided I'm going to go the grant route and I want to start today. Like today's the day. I want to go out and pursue a grant. What is the best kind of grant when it comes in terms of lowest hanging fruit for people to go out and pursue and start their journey in grant funding? What would you recommend?
Before you take action, you want to make sure that you evaluate your business. You want to make sure that your business is fundable. So a lot of times we have this mission to get 6 figures in grant funding, but you don't have a business plan. Your business plan is going to be your roadmap to success. It's going to tell, how you're going to take action, how much funding you truly need. A lot of times I ask entrepreneurs, how much money do you need for your business? Oh, I need 6 figures. What 6 figures, So you want to make sure you evaluate your business and understand exactly how much funding you need. Make sure you have an LLC in place or a nonprofit in place. Make sure you have a brand appearance, that your company is online, a business email address, and a business bank account.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people who miss out on funding opportunities because they're operating out of a Gmail account or they're operating out of their personal account.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
The next thing I would say is there is a platform called Hello Skip.
Okay.
Hello Skip is, they give out a $1,000 grant every Tuesday and every Friday. They also give out a $10,000 grant every month. So that's like low-hanging fruit that's out there and available for entrepreneurs. And then your city has funding available for you. We have somebody in our community. She reached out to her city and asked, hey, do you have funding? They said, we don't have anything right now. Call us back September the 1st. She called back on September the 2nd. She was able to get a $5,000 grant just by making a phone call.
Wow.
Yep.
Just by a phone call?
Just by a phone call.
That's insane. Even, listening to you say that right now, I think a lot of people don't really tap into grants because essentially they're a little bit inflammatory in the sense that they help you to kind of address what you don't have in place. Right? And so when you think of going and pursuing a grant and getting grant funding, you have to kind of look at, do you have all your T's crossed? Do you have all your I's dotted? Because now you have people looking at you and holding you accountable. Are you a legitimate business? Are you going to do legitimate work? It's frustrating for a lot of people to go and pursue grant funding because it's inflammatory and it reminds them of what they haven't figured out. They might have Instagram handle that says I'm a business. They might have an IN number, but it's like, do you have a business plan? Do you have all of these other things? What kind of like words of encouragement and how do you guide your clients, so to speak, through that frustrating process of like, I'm popping on Instagram, but like, I'm not really a business. Like, how do you help people in that space?
They have a hobby. It's a hobby. It's not a business. If you're operating as a sole prop, if you're operating and you're playing it small when it comes to your business, you're not a CEO. It's just a hobby. You're playing small.
What makes a business a business?
What makes a business is putting strategies in place, investing in your brand, being able to take the leap of faith and scale it to the next level. And I think just strategizing and sitting down and evaluating what's going to work for you, I think that's going to be key.
Yeah, that's huge. And it reminds me too, like your story and just thinking about where you are today and being able to coach people through grant funding and business funding at large. What kind of work did you have to do, I guess, as a person to become who you are today?
I had to isolate myself from everyone and everything. I had to get real uncomfortable. I've always been very private. I've always had like a very private life, didn't like to share a lot.
Where did that come from?
I don't know. It just kind of happened. everybody has always been curious about what I do and what I had and how I was able to get it. And I've always just kind of been like, nah. And so, you know, I've been able to I've had some hardship. I've been able to kind of go through that in private and just kind of made sure I maintain things personally.
Yeah.
But before, I was actually terminated from Wells Fargo for teaching this information. I don't think we talked about that.
Wow.
So Wells Fargo called me and said, you know, hey, you have 24 hours to decide. Are you going to continue to teach this information to entrepreneurs and teach them about credit and grants? Or are you going to continue to work? So I decided to teach this information.
Wow.
So I was actually terminated from teaching. But after that, I had to kind of sit back and evaluate me. What do I really want? Do I really want to be in corporate America? Do I really want to kind of push this information? Is it going to be beneficial for me? So I had to evaluate me. And in that time, I had to get uncomfortable. I had to separate myself. I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of people. But I just had to focus.
Are you essentially, would you describe yourself as somebody who's really goal-oriented and focused?
I'm big at manifesting.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you find out that you have the possibility of getting terminated, what does that do to your psyche? How did that make you feel when you were learning that information?
I think I knew it was coming. I think my time had been up a long time ago. I was just very content. I was working from home. It was after the pandemic, so I was still working from home. I would press power on the keyboard and climb back in bed. But before that, even when I worked at the branch, I was able to do I was there 15 years.
Wow.
So I was able to do almost anything I wanted to do. I had not unlimited, but I had a lot of PTO. So I was just comfortable, and I think it was just the push that I needed to get out of my comfort zone.
And I think that's powerful too, because a lot of people, you know, I like to talk about the dualities, I guess, of being comfortable and complacent. Because when you get used to something, it's cozy, like you know, it's your everyday, like you're used to it. But then when life starts lifing, and then you realize, oh, okay, I've actually been complacent in this area of my life. Now it's time for me to actually change and rise up to what's in front of me. How have you been able to do that, I guess, as a person? How have you been able to rise up in the midst of adversity?
With strategizing is going to be key. Making sure I have a game plan. That's always been kind of the forefront of everything I do, of course, in God. I think pushing me out of my comfort zone, I think he had showed me before what I could do, and it was like, oh, so you're not going to listen? Let me just show you what you have to do. And then I have a 13-year-old daughter, so just incorporating her in everything I do and knowing that she's watching my every move, it kind of makes me push and go a lot harder. Yeah, because I have to be that superwoman for her and that role model for her, so she doesn't get lost in what's on social media.
Right.
So that's always been key.
Right. And so there's this idea out there of the strong Black woman. With you talking about God pushing you to the next level and just being strong in general and recognizing the areas of improvement that you have within your own life. When it comes to God pushing you, what lesson do you think has taken you the longest to learn?
Whew, there's a lot. The longest to learn is that I can't do it all by myself. I need support. And that's something I struggle with. Again, I have a 13-year-old daughter. So we recently just relocated back to Nashville because my job now requires me to be gone so much. It took a lot for me to do that because that's me not being there and being an active full-time mother, which I've always been. I never missed.
Of a teenager
Yeah, of a teenager.
Girl.
Exactly. And I'm still a full-time mother. See how I just said that? I'm still a full-time mother. It doesn't take away from me being a full-time mother. It's just knowing what the mission is. It's knowing what the goals are. It's knowing what the bigger picture is. So it's realizing that I need a team and incorporating my team and telling them, hey, I need you. And it's okay for me to say, hey, I need you. So I think that's going to be it's taken me the longest to adjust.
That you need help.
Yeah, that I need help.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. When it comes to needing help, obviously there's a lot of people out there that are going to be watching this podcast that are like, I need your help in particular on how to actually get this money. I guess what advice would you have to people when it comes to the dreamer in them, right? Because people are excited about their ideas, they're excited about their babies, and when I say babies, I mean figuratively their ideas. How do you help people navigate in a space where it's like you can get money for your idea, but things might have to change a little bit? You might have to tweak a couple of things in order to get this particular grant.
Yeah. So I always make sure people understand that being another LLC is not enough. There's a million people that start a company or organization every year. So being another LLC is not the strategy that's going to get you access to funding. So we have to sit down and figure out, we have to kind of, that seed that you planted inside of you, we got to water it and figure out how we're going to be able to make it grow. And what are the things and the ingredients and the components that we can put inside of you to make this business form to the next level. So it's sitting down and just having that uncomfortable conversation that a lot of times coaches don't like to have with business owners because they're scared to hurt their feelings. They're scared to hurt their pride. I'm not that person. I'm okay with saying, no, this ain't it. Figure out another strategy. Let's go back to the drawing board. What else can we do? But it's also encouraging them to invest into their mission. I say that all the time. Entrepreneurs are scared to invest in a coach. Entrepreneurs are scared to invest in the class or the course. So it's making that initial investment as well that's going to get you access to the capital you want and be able to help you scale your business to the next level.
When was the moment that you realized that there was something, I guess, in grant funding? Like, what was the particular grant that made you feel like, I have to let other people know that this is out there, that this is it's for the taking, essentially, for a lot of people. Like, what was it about grant? Because when we think about, my show's Finding Your Niche with Neish, how did you actually get into that space, that niche, that industry, and that purpose of grant funding? Like, what was it about that specifically?
So my big aha moment, I have a for-profit, which is my child care center, and then I have a nonprofit, which we eventually made that the STEM education program.
Okay.
So we were able to collaborate with our for-profit and our nonprofit and same mission, same goals, but we were able to get more funding for our companies and for our organization just based off of that. And so there's this misconception out there that a nonprofit, you can't make money. You can't collaborate your for-profit and your nonprofit together. It's not true. So I had an argument with somebody, not an argument, but a friendly debate. Healthy debate. And I really had to kind of like show them that this is my strategy and this is what's working. And there's absolutely nothing unethical about what I'm doing. So teaching that information, and then I was kind of forced into it. I've been able to help friends get access to funding. And then
are you the plug? Are you the grand plug amongst your friends?
Just a little bit. The ones who listen, right? I still have friends who, they don't listen, but the ones who do, they have been successful at getting access to grant funding and business funding for their business as well. So then just being on social media and being vocal about it on social media and showing entrepreneurs that you can do this, that was kind of like an eye-opener for me. And that's always been the mission, is just to help others as well.
Yeah. And for a lot of people who are out there and they just feel like, she's not talking to me. Like, ain't no way I can get no grant. I know you said that there's a grant out there for everybody. Is there really a grant out there for everybody?
So I encourage people to make a list of about 10 things that either you want to do within your business or you're currently doing within your business. A lot of times entrepreneurs, we put ourselves in a bubble. We say, hey, I have this podcast, right? I need grant funding for my podcast. But if you talk about the podcast and talk about different episodes that you've done, maybe you've done an episode that caters to mental health. Maybe you've done an episode that talks about, single moms and their well-being. Maybe you've done an episode that talks about youth. Each one of those things is a category where you can get access to grant funding. So you have to look at your picture, think outside the box. What else can I do to get access to grant funding? We have people who say they don't have time to apply for grants. I have single mothers with 4, 5, and 6 kids that are applying for grants. Still working mothers as well that are applying for grants and strategizing and getting access to grant funding. There's no excuse.
No excuse.
None.
Okay, so if there was like one statement that you wish people could know and understand when it comes to grant funding and what you do, what is the message? What is the sentiment that you're trying to put out in the atmosphere?
Ooh, that's a good one. One statement. You got me on that one. Literally, there's funding available for every entrepreneur, every industry. Every business owner qualifies for grant funding, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit. It's all about finding the company that wants to invest into your mission. You're deserving of the funding that's available for you. All you got to do is take action.
Take action.
Take action.
And that's what you did.
That's what I did.
And here we are. Coach Kane, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I've gotten like a tremendous value out of what you've been able to say. In 1 minute, tell people the first, let's say, 3 things that they need to do in order to get started with their business today in terms of grant funding.
Love it. Okay, 1 minute, y'all. All right, so if you are looking for grant funding for your business, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have the structure and the foundation of your business in order. The next thing you want to do is find funding opportunities that are going to be available for you, local funding, city funding. The third thing you want to do is when you are answering grant questions for your business, make sure you are real. Make sure you are relatable to the investor. You're educating them about your business. You have an action plan that talks about how you're going to execute when you receive the grant funding, and make sure they love your business and love your brand and want to invest in you.
I love it. How often do people look at social media in terms of like companies? Do they do that? Like
All the time.
The people who award
Yes,
grants, do
all
they
the
look at your
time.
social media?
Brand appearance is big.
Really?
They're going to your social media and they're making sure that what you have on social media aligns with what you're doing in grant applications. So if you're on social media and you are having a good time, but you're not executing when it comes to your business, you're not receiving that grant.
I don't think people know that.
People don't know that. This is why we teach this information.
Wow. So I can be lit.
You can be lit a little bit.
I can be lit on social
Get your
media.
personal page. Get
Okay.
your personal page. Be lit on your personal page. But when it comes to that business, make sure it aligns with your goals and your mission.
Wow. That's a bar.
Yeah.
That's a bar. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show
No problem.
today.
Thank
I
you for having
appreciate
me.
you. You're so beautiful,
Thank
so
you. You are
talented,
too.
and you're just. I love the industry that you're in because you're in the industry of helping people get free money, which is like my favorite thing. Like, if you like free money, raise your hand. Thank you so much. You guys stay tapped into what she's doing. If they want to follow you or learn more about some of your services, how to get connected into your community, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yep. So Instagram, I'm on Instagram and TikTok at It's Coach K, ITSS Coach K. Also have a grant application that you can apply for. It's called the Legacy Grant. It's a $2,500 grant we are giving to all we're giving out once a quarter. And all entrepreneurs qualify for it. And so you can follow me on social media and learn more about that. Also have a free class, grantmasteryclass.com, where you can learn all about this grant information.
I love that. I'm on my way to get some free money.
We're going to make sure it happens, that podcast summit.
Hey, we gonna get that
See how I
podcast.
manifested that?
You did. I love that. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
All right, peace.